The course Six-Figure Product Creation is really for anybody who wants to get product to market and have successful products.
This is Steve Atwell, and you're listening to Education Hackers. Today, I'm extremely pleased to have Kathleen Gage on the show. Kathleen is a no-nonsense, common-sense online marketing strategist, speaker, author, product creation specialist, and owner of Power Up Profits. She helps entrepreneurs make money online. Her clients are driven by making a difference through their own unique voice. As an early adopter of online marketing, Kathleen is known for cutting through the fluff. She speaks and teaches about what she believes are the core elements of a successful life: accountability, integrity, honesty, and living with passion and hope. Kathleen believes the best way to become well-known in your market is to let go of the need to be well-known and simply serve and create an incredible experience for everyone you come in contact with. So Kathleen, welcome to the show. You live in Pleasant Hill, Oregon, and I have to ask you, is it really pleasant where you live?
It's delightful. I have to tell you, I actually have a ranch and we have 3 horses. And this morning I was going out to feed the horses. And as I turned around leaving the barn, I was looking at the sky and the sunrise was incredible. It's a small farming community. It's out off the beaten path. It's extremely pleasant. I love it here.
A farm and horses and wide open spaces. Wow. Any city dweller would be very jealous of that.
Well, you know, I used to be a city dweller. I actually lived in San Francisco and loved it when I lived there, but that's when I was much younger and I was single, and so it was a great city to live in at the time. And as I've gotten older, I find that the quiet is what I enjoy.
Yeah. Did you ever watch Christmas in Connecticut?
No, I never saw that.
You should look it up. It's actually a pretty nice older movie, and it's about this woman who she writes for a magazine about cooking. And then her publisher decides to show up, and she knows nothing about cooking, and she's supposed to have a farm. So she has to find a farm, and she has to pretend that she can cook. So it's just when you talked about the farm, and I watched the movie this Christmas. It was a very pleasant family movie. You received some bizarre messages recently, haven't you? And requests from people you don't know, haven't you?
Oh, gosh. You know, it's interesting, Steve, because it's not just recently. It's been for a while. And what I've learned, and this is what I teach my clients, and yeah, I blog about it and I write articles about it. The more well-known you become within a market, the more you are subjected to people giving you opinions about things that many don't even know what they're talking about, or they're very critical. I actually posted on Facebook about, I'm trying to remember what the comment even was. And I said, okay, calling all experts, how many of you have ever had somebody write something that is so bizarre? And some of the things that people are posting is pretty incredible. One expert, she said that she wrote her book, it was published, and there was a mistake on page 25. I remember that number. And she said there was a mistake on page 25, and a reader actually wrote her and said, do you think that you can fix that before it goes to press the second time? And I'm like, wow, that's pretty incredible that people will focus on little things that slip through that we really don't have a lot of control over. I mean, when you're doing a lot of writing, you're doing a lot of speaking, you're doing teleseminars, interviews, you're bound to make mistakes. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, there are people that are more than happy to point that out. But then you have to look at those people who really appreciate what you're doing also.
So that can be very pleasant. I mean, what's the most bizarre request you've received?
Well, a few years ago, I had a gentleman who emailed me and he asked me for some advice on something. So I responded, gave him an answer, and then he wrote and asked another question. I gave him an answer. And by the third question, I said, you know, we're moving into consulting now, and I'd be happy to talk to you about what my services are. And he was irate. He said, how dare you? He goes, I thought you were a person who liked to give back to people, and I can't believe that you would even ask me to consider paying you for your services. And I thought, wow, what world does he live in? And so to me, that was a little bit bizarre in that he expected to get a lot of information for free, wanted to build a business, but wasn't willing to invest in his business. And Steve, this is what I see a lot of. People want to build businesses, but they don't treat their business like a business. And we've seen more of this with online businesses than with brick and mortar, because with brick and mortar, you know, there's going to be investments. With the online world, there's a lot of hype out there that you can actually build a business with no money. You have to invest in your business. So I think the most bizarre requests and comments and feedback that I've ever gotten are from people who really expect to make millions of dollars and never invest in their business. Those of us that are doing really well in our businesses, we invest quite a bit.
Yeah, that's interesting because I've had similar experiences. I mean, I grew up in Kent, UK, and I can tell you that that area that I grew up in was far from pleasant in terms of just the environment. Racism ran amok, bullies were kicked out of school almost on a monthly basis just to be replaced by a new bully hell-bent on making life miserable for everyone around him. When I went into secondary school, all the bullies parted before me like the sea before Moses. You see, I had an older brother who had a reputation that put the fear of God in those bullies. They would come out to me and shake my hand. You actually look like you could easily pass for an upper-class British lady. You have that look. Have you always lived in Pleasant Hill, Oregon?
No, I haven't. Actually, my mother was from Belgium. And so she came over after the war, met my father during World War II. And so I do have a European flair to who I am. And my father actually was, I think, half English. So, I actually have quite a bit of a European background and heritage. But I grew up in San Jose, California, and then I lived in the Bay Area, San Francisco. And then at one point in my life, I was in my 30s, I traveled to the Middle East, and I lived on the West Bank for a period of time. I lived on a moshav. And then I lived in Utah for 15 years, and about 8.5, nearly 9 years ago, I moved to Pleasant Hill.
So there you go. You have some genes, or some European genes in your blood there.
Yeah, but the older I get, some of those genes aren't fitting anymore, but that's a whole different story.
Margaret Thatcher paid for my education until I moved to Canada. That Iron Lady really knew how to stick it to Teddy Heath, who helped to get ahead. Those two politicians seem to love having a very public battle in the media. That was entertaining for us kids back then, but no matter what anybody may say about Margaret Thatcher, she held everyone accountable, including herself, and she wasn't afraid to tell the truth no matter how much it might hurt. She basically turned the country around and took it out of a depression era. And boy, did she have passion in what she did. What are you most passionate about, Kathleen, and have you ever been called an Iron Lady?
I've been called an Iron Lady and a few other things, but what I'm really passionate about, it depends if you're asking personally or professionally, but on a personal level, I'm very passionate about rescue animals. I've got dogs, cats, horses, and most of them have been rescued. So that's on a personal level what I'm extremely passionate about. Professionally, what I'm passionate about is excellence, and not perfection, but excellence. And for other people to be held accountable for the decisions they make. Because one of the things that I've seen in the 20 years that I've had my business, there are people that make decisions and they don't really think those decisions through. And then once they kind of come to, maybe they go to a seminar or workshop and they buy a program or services from somebody, and then they realize what they did, even if they sign a contract and they go, I can't believe that I made this decision, and so I want my money back, and I don't want to be held accountable. And so what I'm really passionate about is educating people on the choices that they make and having them be more responsible for the success and the failures that they have. Because success and failure is a choice that we make. And I was actually thinking about this morning. I have a lot of friends that are very successful in business, and all of them have worked extremely hard to get where they're at. It didn't come by chance. It didn't come by a fluke. It came by being very strategic in what they were doing, willing to invest in their business, taking the action that needed to be taken, failing many times, and learning from those failures, but keeping the process going. And really, as I look at people who are wanting to have successful businesses, what I'm really passionate about, Steve, is helping them to understand that there's a process that they need to go through. And you're not going to get rich overnight. You're not going to get rich quick, that you really have to pay your dues. And unfortunately, again, there's a lot of hype out there about the fact that all you need to do is press a button and make millions of dollars and live happily ever after. It doesn't work like that. Another thing that I'm pretty passionate about is working with the niche market that I work with, which is primarily women over the age of 50 who have had a very successful career, and they're moving into their second act of life and another level of what their career is. And many people at that age have an issue that they're dealing with that I actually already went through, which is the illness and the loss of parents. I lost both my parents within the last 5 years. And I was able to keep my business going because I had information products that were sustaining the revenue stream in my business. And so I'm very passionate about teaching people how to set their businesses up in a way that they can have a quality of life to make decisions that many people are not in a position to do so.
That's a very interesting topic, success. It's interesting how some people define success. Your old boss thought that success for you would be forcing you to take programming lessons. But success is a very personal thing. How do you define success in your life?
Ooh, that is such a great question, Steve. For me, success is doing what I love doing with the people I love doing it with. In other words, working with the types of clients that I most enjoy working with, creating products and services that fulfill the needs of those clients, and doing it really on my terms. For example, over the holiday season, I took most of the 2-week period from right before Christmas to after New Year's off. And that was by choice. I was able to do that. And also success means to me building a business where I can actually hire people and contract people to take a lot of the load off of me so I don't have to work as hard as I used to, and working the hours that I want to work, when I want to work, and again, with whom I want to work. And doing something that's fulfilling. It's not just about making money, because I make really good money in my business, but it's really about doing something that has a higher purpose to it.
Exactly. When you're a billionaire, you can...
I'm not there yet.
Before we get into your online course, I'd like to ask, how do you like to relax when you're not working or rescuing dogs from dumpsters? How do you unwind? Do you have any hobbies?
You've done your homework, I can tell. Actually, I like to take those dogs and go on hikes. In the last few days, I've done quite a few hikes, and I live in a beautiful area of Oregon. Actually, I would say all of Oregon is beautiful, but I live very close to a BLM area. It's a government-owned property. And so I go on hikes. That's one of the things I love to do to relax. And I'm actually in the process of training for a marathon that right around my 61st birthday, I'll be doing my first marathon. And I also love to read. I'm an avid reader. And at any given time, I probably have 4 or 5 books going. And I'm very into books on spirituality, books on self-development, business building books. I'm not really a reader of novels or fiction. I'm more a nonfiction type reader, but to me, that's very relaxing. And spending time with family. I love spending time with family.
That's interesting, because I'm also an avid audiobook listener, and my latest interest is quantum physics. I watched the movie Interstellar. That was an amazing movie, and talking about quantum physics is quite interesting. So what was your passion before you created your online course?
For a long time, I've had a passion for the outdoors and for reading. I would say that really not much has changed, just the level at which I can do what I do has changed. I have a lot more freedom today, specifically because I do have a successful business. And when people say money doesn't make you happy, I think it's usually broke people who say that, because money gives you the freedom to do some of the things that you otherwise couldn't do. And it's not that money drives happiness, but money does give you the opportunity to create the experiences that do create some of the happiness.
That is so true, because most people are so worried about paying their mortgage, putting food on the table, and just covering basic necessities, that's what their focus is. I mean, they worry about where they're going to get the next paycheck.
Absolutely.
So they don't have the freedom to think about anything else.
Well, and I'd like to add in that there was a period in my life where, out of the choices that I made some really poor choices in my late teens and my early 20s, to the point that I ended up on the streets. I literally could not work. I was unemployable in a very bad way. Today, I'm unemployable in a good way. But at that time in my life, I didn't have a job, couldn't hold down a job, because, again, I was making really bad choices. Partying was more important to me than showing up to a job. And so I know what it's like to not be able to pay my bills. I know what it's like to be so anxiety driven over how am I even going to put food on the table. And first I have to get a table to put the food on, and I have to get a roof over my head. And a lot of that has to do with mindset. That seems like a really simple answer, but the reality is that what we focus on, we tend to get more of. And I had some pretty amazing mentors early on when I decided to get my life in order. And one mentor said, you have to make different choices on a daily basis, and they have to be simple choices. Like you have to make the choice that for today, you're not going to party. And it's like, at the time, it didn't connect with me. And today it makes so much sense that the choices we make each and every day, for example, like getting up earlier, if we have a commitment to our health, getting up earlier and taking that walk, or if we have a commitment to our business and saying that we want a lot of online visibility, instead of first thing in the morning going directly into emails and directly into Facebook and the social networks that we belong to use that time to monetize our business. So it's really about choice, and the smarter our choices are, the more likely we're going to create the kind of life that we want. Now, that doesn't mean that life isn't going to happen. When I went through the whole process of losing both my parents, I was my mother's caretaker for a couple of years, and it was a very difficult period of time for me. This was just a few years ago. And every day I made the choice to spend time with my mother, be there for my mother. And I also made the choice to set my business up in a way that I had that freedom to do that.
That's a very hard thing to do when your parents are in a bad health. My father died when I was 14 in England, and then my mom stayed with me for almost like 90% of her life until her health was failing, and she ended up in a home, and she had all kinds of problems, and that was it. I totally can relate to what you went through. Let's talk about your online course, Six-Figure Product Creation. Give us a bird's eye view of the course. What do you cover? Who is it for? And why should people be signing up for it?
Well, thank you for asking. And the course Six-Figure Product Creation is really for anybody who wants to get product to market and have successful products, because I have a very pragmatic approach to how to develop your products and how to test to see if a product's going to make money. So I cover everything from how to get ebooks done, how to get teleseminars and webinars done, how to do telesummits, how to create information products, and really determine what is it that your market is interested in. Because the mistake that I see a lot of people make is they'll put a lot of time and effort into creating a product before they even find out if that product is going to be something that the market will bear and the market will want and pay for. And it's one thing to create a product. It's a whole different ballgame to make money from that product. So my course actually starts with the foundation of you have to determine who your market is, what segment of that market you really want to work with and will be profitable for you, what your expertise is, what you bring to the game, if you will, and then how to determine what products to create for that particular market. And again, it's a very systemized and pragmatic approach to developing your products, how to get them up and running, and how to actually set it up so you can start making money from your products. And so really who it's for would be anybody who wants to make money from products. And primarily, I work with people who have some business savvy and they understand that they do have to put effort into what they're doing. I don't look to promote and sell to people who are with a pie in the sky kind of attitude that they don't have to work for what they want. And that's where my whole issue, my whole positioning of no nonsense. I'm the no nonsense coach. Because I really help people to understand that there's effort that they have to put into what they're doing. And my course really works from that perspective, but it breaks it down into bite-sized pieces so that you can start with something small, manageable, and doable so that you can have that success and go on to the next area that you're going to create a product. And I've gotten some great feedback and testimonials from people who have been very successful in creating products that have generated a substantial amount of revenue. One client I worked with, she did her first telesummit ever when she started working with me. And on her first telesummit, she made $35,000. I have another client who put together a 6-month coaching program that was an online virtual packaged program that she made $88,000 on. And when she first was developing it, she was going to charge a lot less than she ended up charging. And I said, I really encourage you to charge more than that because you have no idea how much work's going to go into that. Well, once she started, she goes, I'm so glad that you invited me to charge more. And she's been able to introduce that program several times to her market as a prepackaged program and made a substantial amount of money.
That's amazing. That's amazing that you've helped so many people create products. And a lot of people don't know where to start. I'm looking at your course, and you have 4 sections to the course, and you have a lot of material. You know, you teach people how to create ebooks, videos, webinars. I mean, the first section alone is about how to get started and avoid those non-essentials that you kind of tend to focus on. Give us some of the non-essentials that people tend to focus on.
Well, the non-essential would be creating something before you find out if there's a need for it. Another non-essential are all the bells and whistles to get started, that you have to have the best of the best program to develop products. Sometimes all you need is a telephone and a free service where you can record an audio file. And so sometimes the non-essentials are the really high-priced programs that at this point in time you don't need, because what you need to do is roll up your sleeves and get in the game and start creating the product.
It seems like we tend to focus on the tools rather than the content.
Right.
So we get attracted by all these shiny objects that, you know, if we just buy this new tool, we'll create an amazing product.
Steve, it's incredible how often that happens. And I remember a few years ago, this was probably about 14, 15 years ago, I bought a product from Dan Kennedy. It was a video program. And we're talking the VCR video where you had to pop in that big, it was a big box thing you stuck into a box. And I remember as I was looking at it, the quality of the filming was terrible. I mean, I have to say it was probably the worst quality I had ever seen. But the quality of the content was incredible. And so I didn't really care as much about if it was a Hollywood production video as much as I cared about the content and the quality of content. And I actually went through with a fine-tooth comb every video that I think there were about 10 videos, and hour after hour after hour, I watched these and analyzed them. And I started implementing the information. And that series that I got from Dan Kennedy probably made me now by this point well over $1 million. And it not all at once, but over the process of time. And it was really learning how to sell from the platform. That was actually what the topic was about, is how to sell from the platform. And the first time I implemented his information, I made $7,000. And then a few weeks later, I did it again and made about $7,000 or $8,000. Then I made 10. Then I made 15. And over the years, it's increased to where one of my last events that I did, we made about $200,000 from selling from the platform. And it was from a low quality, as far as the production quality, very low quality, but the content quality was incredible. And this is where a lot of people get caught up. They want all the bells and whistles. They want the Hollywood production at quality, when all you need to do initially is get your information out to market.
I'm looking at the module 2 here. Talk about teleseminars, webinars, and some prudent strategies for marketing. And you have a sneaky, simple process to use surveys to create copy, to develop content that people actually want. How is that working out?
I'm going to give all the secrets away. Actually, one strategy I teach is how to go onto Amazon and look at books in a certain genre and then take a look at the reviews that have been done. And there's a strategy that I teach where you can actually use the reviews to create copy for your sales letters. And it's a real simple strategy. I'm not going to give the whole strategy away because it's in the program, but there's ways that you can look at what people are writing, the customers are writing through reviews and testimonials, and you can actually extract keywords, you can extract phrases that they use that will resonate with them when you put your sales copy together.
That's an awesome tip there. Just wish there was a one-click button that will pull all that information out for you, but you have to do the work.
Well, you want to put your own voice to what you're doing also. I think the mistake that a lot of people make is they try to, it's good to emulate other people. It's good to model after what people are doing, but you also want to have your point of view and your perspective. And I was thinking about this yesterday. I was actually out getting my hair done recently, and I met a young man that he had a book called Contagious, and it's orange cover. And the word contagious was really large on it. And I said, what's that book about? And he said, it's how to get social traffic and how to really get your message out there in a big way, and it just goes viral. And I was thinking, what is it that is the distinction between people who really do well with their message and those that do so-so or they don't do well at all? And really, it's about being yourself. It's about your point of view. It's about your perspective. You look at people like Russell Brand, for example, very, very bizarre kind of guy, and yet he is so well branded, no pun intended with his last name, but he's so well branded with his message, and it's because it's his message. It's not somebody else's message.
It's interesting. I mean, the information is there in front of you. It's a matter of you trying to put it together and, like you said, have your own voice and present it from your perspective. I mean, you have expertise in a certain area. Everybody has expertise in a certain area. Mine is tech and education. That's one of the reasons why I started this podcast. Your system seems to cover a lot of information. You talk about continuity programs, home study courses, list building, marketing, and then seminar speaking, blog tours, social media marketing. There's a lot of stuff that you cover. Mm-hmm. And there's also, I mean, I'm looking at your website, and you have a product launch calendar, how to do internet radio shows, some directories that you might want to post in, interview host sheets, fast training videos, outsourcing. There's a lot of really valuable information that people can get there. In terms of social media training, you have some step-by-step training on how to get the most out of your social media, such as Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. Is it true that women primarily are on Pinterest?
There are more women on Pinterest than on other locations. Actually, percentage-wise, you have more women that use Pinterest. And the hot topics on Pinterest, recipes, which is really interesting, weight loss is really big, puppies, and children. Those are some of the hot topics that people like to see pictures on. But the thing that you want to look at is who is your particular market, because you don't want to assume that just because a lot of women are on Pinterest, it's necessarily your market of women. And so the most important thing in using social media is to, first of all, determine who your market is and where your market hangs out. For example, I was working with a dentist a few years ago. He actually wrote a book during the time that I was working with him, and very successful dentist. And his market, part of his market was other dentists, teaching them how to build a successful practice, because he had built a $3 million practice. And as we were analyzing where he needed to be seen, it wasn't on Facebook, it wasn't on LinkedIn, it wasn't on Twitter. It actually was on a private forum that was specific to the dental industry. There were hundreds of thousands of dentists who were on this social network, and the general public didn't know anything about this particular social network, and you had to be in the dental industry to be able to be a member of this particular group. And so it's really essential that people understand and analyze their market, because the more that you can pinpoint who it is that you really want to deal with and they want to deal with you, the easier your marketing and your sales become. And, you know, there's a flip side of marketing, which is you also need to know how to sell. And this is where I see a lot of people really flounder, is they might learn how to market, but they don't know how to have a good sales conversation. And if you're selling higher end products and services, you do need to know how to have that sales conversation.
I find that one of the underutilized social networks, I guess we can call it a social network because it gets your message across, is Slideshare. A lot of educators seem to use Slideshare, and I think it's underutilized. What's your perspective on that?
I love Slideshare. I actually did an article recently on 5 trends for 2015, and I posted it as an article on Slideshare. All I did was upload the article in a Word document, and within probably 10 hours, I had nearly 500 views on that particular article. And what I love about Slideshare is that you do get a lot of good traffic if you're proactive in the way that you're promoting what you've put on Slideshare. And they have the little share buttons underneath for Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. And if you belong to several groups, let's say in LinkedIn, you can click the LinkedIn button and then you can share it with every group that you belong to. And that's how you get get the traction. So Slideshare for me, I have found it to be very beneficial.
Yeah, when I talk to online educators, especially gamification experts, I've connected with a bunch of gamification experts. They all love Slideshare. Take a look at Slideshare. It's underutilized, and you will get some good traffic from there if you use the right strategies.
And here's a tip that I'd like to give people is to actually have a checklist of, let's say that you're doing article marketing, and some people say that article marketing is dead. I'm here to tell you it's alive, it's well, and if you've got great content, you can build a following with your articles. And what you want to do is you want to take one article, you want to post it to 3 to 6 directories, and I happen to like ezine articles. I put it on self-growth, I put it on Evan Carmichael. Those are the top 3 that I utilize. And then what I do is I take that same article, I put it up on Slideshare. Then what I do is I take that same article and I put it on my blog, and I might be a little more promotional on my blog, where at the end of the article, I'll have something that I might be offering to people. It could be my membership program. It could be a course that I'm teaching. So I've put it on article directories, I've put it on Slideshare, and I've put it on my blog. Then what I do is I send a message out to my opt-in subscribers, letting them know that I've got this new article on my blog, and I don't just say I've got a new article. I give them 2 or 3 paragraphs from the article, and then I have a read more, click here, and it takes them right to the article on my blog. Then on Slideshare, I use the social media button, so it gets more traction that way. And then with the article directories, obviously the directories they have their traffic. So those are just some real simple ways that you can take one article and you can get a lot of visibility from it. Now, the thing you want to look at also is a way to drive traffic back to your website and offer something that is appealing to your market, but keeping in mind that people don't opt in for things the way that they used to. And even if they do, they might be using a bogus email, or they're not going to open up anything else that you send them unless it's really appealing to them. So what we've seen happen, the trends that are happening with online marketing, is that you really need to be market specific and topic specific and solution specific in order for people to pay attention to what you're doing.
So how did you get started in this whole digital creation product business, and how did you determine there was a need for your course?
Well, I got started probably 15 years ago, and at that time I was doing a lot of platform speaking. I was out speaking in front of corporations, in front of small businesses, in front of government agencies. And I really enjoyed what I was doing. And yet, as my business started growing, what I realized is I most enjoyed working with small businesses. That was really where my passion was. And I had physical products that I had created. And when I first got introduced to the internet, I realized that a lot of people didn't know a great deal about marketing. And much of what I did offline was marketing small businesses. And so I actually took a physical product that I had, and I took a portion of it and I turned it into my first ebook, and did a whole campaign around it where I got joint venture partners, affiliate partners, and put it on ClickBank. And the first time I introduced it to market, I made $15,000. And I thought, there's something to this. And so really what I did is I took what I was doing offline and I converted it to the online platform. And I just found that I had a great passion for it. I really took to it like a fish to water. It was like, oh my gosh, I love this. And I saw what the potential was, because this was way back when a lot of people were using AOL as their service provider for email. And you'd get this little voice going, "You've got mail." And we got pretty excited about that. And when you would talk to a group of people, if there were 100 people in a group that you were talking to, maybe 4 or 5 actually had email at that time. And then we started seeing the trend where more and more people were getting email. So what I did is I just paid attention to the trends, and I realized this was a great way to actually enhance my offerings to another segment of the population. So I started about 15 years ago, and I just liked it from the very beginning. I found it very intriguing, spent a lot of time studying it. It wasn't like I read one ebook and I said, okay, this is it. I immersed myself and got as much information as possible. One of the first people that I bought his product was Corey Riddell. And it was a $200 product, probably 13 years ago, 14 years ago. And at that time, that was a lot of money for me to invest. And then I was noticing other people who were coming on the horizon buying their products. And so Tommy Antion was one of my early mentors. Willie Crawford was one of my early mentors. And so I just started buying information and immersing myself in the content and then implementing. See, that's the big thing that I think is the distinction between people who will succeed and those who don't. The people who succeed, they get the information and they apply it. And they learn what works for them and what doesn't, but at least they're willing to try it.
That's a key word as well that I always push with people is implementation.
Absolutely.
A lot of people have ideas in their head and they just think about it, analyze it, but they don't take any action. They don't implement. So let's assume that I'm one of your new keen students. You see, I have a lot going on in my head. Too much, in fact. I'm always helping others, whether it's with advice on the tech side because I have a long history in managing corporate IT environments, or listening to people because they need a sympathetic ear. How do I get started in creating a new product when my mind is doing a Russian Barania folk dance, squatting, jumping, spinning around? What would you recommend as my first step to product creation?
The first step I would recommend is learn the word no. Which means you're going to free up a lot of your time. If you're the kind of person that likes to just give away everything, you need to set boundaries on what you're doing and you need to organize your time. You also need to look at what your area of expertise is and what makes you different from everybody else who is going to be offering the same kind of information. And the next thing you need to look at is what is one of the greatest challenges that your market currently has. And not only is that a challenge for them, are they willing to pay for a solution? Based on that, you can start mapping out what would be the key things that they need to learn in order to have a solution for a problem. For example, let's say that they need to learn how to set up their IT systems in a small business. Where are the greatest challenges for setting up IT systems? What are their greatest fears? Because you have to address their fears. And what is a solution that you can give them that is easy to implement and something that if it's a do-it-yourself kind of program, that they can easily do it themselves? Or if it's one that they need to bring on other experts for, you need to advise them on how to find those experts and how to cost effectively create the solution.
Yeah, one thing I find is that people do have a lot of stuff going on in their head. Do you ever recommend people take some GABA powder as a prerequisite to taking your course? For those that don't know, GABA powder has a natural calming effect and promotes relaxation. Some parents think it's a great thing to slip into drinks with crazy teenagers with too much nervous energy.
Well, here's what I do recommend, Steve, with a lot of people that I take on as private clients, and I'm very, very particular about who I'll take on as a private client. One, because there's a pretty substantial investment to it. And I'm not talking about people that buy my products. I'm talking about one-on-one coaching that I do. Many times I put them on a buying product diet. I say, okay, right now, I don't want you to buy anything else. What I want you to do is list out everything that you've purchased in the last few years. I want you to go through and actually do an inventory of what you have. And then I want you to prioritize. What in that list do you really need to keep and what can you let go of? Because a lot of times we have so much stuff on our computers or we have so many books that we look at it and go, one of these days I'll get around to it. And that actually eats up energy. And what I often do is I'll say, okay, before you buy anything else, let's have a conversation about it. And I want you to justify why you should buy it. And 9 times out of 10, before they ever approach me with their idea of what they should buy next, they've already solved their problem and they've decided they really don't need it because they have 3 other programs that are very similar to it. And so a lot of it is really organizing yourself in a way that you're not making purchases that are not well thought through, and your previous purchases, you're really looking at that and saying, okay, what of this information do I really need to keep and what can I let go of? And it's amazing what that will do to free up space in your mind.
Just a disclaimer, parents, don't give anyone any GABA powder without the consent or that of a doctor. No matter how much you think it might help your teens calm down. So what was the biggest mistake you made when you first started creating your online course?
I would say the greatest mistake that I made was not getting an actual one-on-one mentor sooner. I did like a lot of people. I tried to go the shoestring budget route. And what I found is when I started investing in the right mentors, it cut my learning curve by a good 90%. I was able to get to the solution a lot quicker. And by having skin in the game, by me being willing to invest, then it justified me being able to ask people to invest in me. One of the things that I see people do is they want people to pay them for their knowledge, but they're not willing to pay other people. And so I would say if there was any mistake, it was that I didn't invest in one-on-one mentors early enough.
And what was your workflow like when you created your course? How did you determine what to include and what to add as a bonus?
That developed along the way, Steve. As far as the bonuses, it was based on what people were asking for, what I had available, what I really knew intuitively would be a good match for the program. And as far as the program, what I did is I actually, this is my process, and this is something that I teach clients, is I created the sales letter first with all the possible elements to the program. Rather than going in and creating the program and then trying to sell it, what I did is I actually pre-sold it by hosting free teleseminars and free webinars. And based on the level of interest that people would have, then I would know if that was something that needed to be added to the program. And also based on my own experience of what I had released to market, what is it that people absolutely needed to know? And so I really came from the point of view of, will there be a demand for it? Will people show up for it? And will they pay for it? Because with one of my most successful courses that I created a few years ago, it was how to become an Amazon.com bestseller. I actually held some free teleseminars. I put the sales copy together. Within 48 hours of the first teleseminar that I announced, I had over 1,000 people who signed up for it. Now, that was a free teleseminar, and it's great that you have a lot of people show up to something free, but will they purchase? And the program was $1,000. And within 24 to 48 hours, we sold 23 units at $1,000. So I knew that I was going into production. Over the years, that course has created quite a bit of revenue. But rather than creating it first, what I did is I actually had the free teleseminar, and I found out there was an interest, had the sales copy put together, sold the program, and then I went into production. Many times what I've done with my courses, I've actually trained it live, recorded it, and then turned it into a home study course. So I have double duty where it forces me to actually have to create the program, because a lot of people, they talk about creating, but they procrastinate and they get sidetracked. They go after the bright, shiny objects, and they never get down to actually creating. One of the best ways to create is to make a public statement, sell it, and then you have to.
Yeah, you're on the hook then, aren't you?
Absolutely.
So how long did it take you to finish your six-figure product creation course?
I can't really give you an exact amount of time because that has been developed over time. So I can't say that it took a month. I can't say that it took 6 months because there's so many elements to it. So I've never really sat down and analyzed it, but the actual delivery of the first level was over a period of 4 weeks, where 1 hour to 2 hours every week we'd have a live training. But then I've got all the bonuses in there, and all of those required a considerable amount of time. But then, when you look at what I've generated in revenue from that, and not just on the front end, this is another thing that I love to teach my clients is it's not just what you're going to make on the front end of a product, but what you offer on the back end. For example, my book, Power Up for Profits. It's a $20 book. It became an Amazon bestseller. We've sold a considerable amount of copies. But that book was also a ticket into a live event. And at the live event, I was able to train people and then make an offer of a pretty substantial program that I filled up my high-end coaching program with that particular book being the lead into the event. So it's not just what you do on the front end, it's what you're able to create on the back end.
And in terms of the techie side, what platform are you using to host your course and why?
We use actually WordPress Wishlist. And one, it's an easy platform. I actually have somebody who handles that for me. And so that's where the course resides. I don't do the techie stuff. I learned very early on that left to my own devices, if I had to do all the techie stuff, I would be bankrupt by now. So I'm smart enough to know that there are people that I need to bring on my team who handle that for me. And Wishlist is relatively easy.
I've used Wishlist. I've tried it out. Wishlist is awesome. It's been around for a while. So was there a reason you didn't use something like Udemy or Skillshare?
Udemy, yes. I've actually not heard the best things about Udemy as far as the amount of money that somebody makes, and you don't have complete control. Now, this is all hearsay. I've not used it, but from the research I did, it just didn't fit my model, and I like having more control. I like being the one that has complete control over what I'm doing.
Yeah, some people love and some people hate their pricing model.
Right.
In terms of get a certain amount of money if you bring in a student, and you get a certain amount of money if they bring in a student. So how do you protect your content? Is through Wishlist. And how do you host your videos? Where do you host your videos? Is it on Vimeo, YouTube?
It's on Amazon.
Okay, so it's a fast Amazon S3 server.
And, a lot of that, quite seriously, Steve, I have a team of people who handle all that. So you could ask me a question and I may not give you the right answer. I'd say, well, you'd have to go to Melanie and ask her. And for me, that works because my business is at a level now that I need a team to handle that kind of stuff, which is something I work with my clients on also, is you have to know when you're the bottleneck in your company. And if you're trying to do everything yourself, you could be preventing yourself from growing.
I think that that's a really good point, that when people are first starting out, they want to know how to do something. But once they've started and launched and they're generating some money from their online course, they can afford to hire a VA.
Absolutely.
And outsource some of that work. What payment system are you using? Are you using PayPal?
We use PayPal, and we also have a merchant account.
And how do you market your course? What's been most successful? Social media, blog posts, webinars?
Actually, the most successful thing has been when I've hosted free teleseminars and webinars. That has been by far the number one way. But I use all different methods to market what I'm doing. So I can't say that one thing in particular has been better than anything else, because I do blogging, I do article marketing, I do mail outs to my email list, I do social media. And so I have many, many avenues that drives the traffic to get my message in front of my market.
So looking back, what was the one tool, software, or hardware that you absolutely needed to create your online course?
My brain. I would say number one tool that really has been instrumental has been Camtasia, and another one has been Instant Teleseminars, a bridge line that I use to do my audio files. But I love Camtasia. I love Instant Teleseminars, and then of course just your standard Word. I try to keep things relatively simple, and this is something that I see a lot of people, again, they want to go into all the bells and whistles instead of just get something to market.
That's really good advice. And you have a private Facebook group that you have to support your members, don't you?
Yes, I do. And we have a few hundred members in there, and anybody who gets the product creation course, they're invited into that group, and we have some really nice activity that goes on in there. And periodically, I will do bonus calls with people where I'll say, hey, let's just hop on the line. We're going to do a Q&A, and I'll answer any question that I can about product creation. And people really seem to like that.
So Kathleen, take a few minutes and offer your best, most practical advice to anyone thinking of creating their first online course or training.
Ooh, that is such a great question and a great invitation, Steve. I would say the most practical advice that I can give somebody is to just do it. Get over the fear of being judged, because you will be judged, as we talked about early on in this conversation, and really think through what you're leaving on the table by not creating that product, and go through the steps of what we've talked about during this conversation of really knowing who your market is, what your expertise is, look at the solutions that they need to the problems that they have, what keeps your clients awake at night. And if you can figure that out and you can come up with a solution and make it easy for them to access, then you've got a winner on your hands.
Kathleen, we have come to the end of the show. I would love to keep talking with you, and I could ask you a ton more questions about your course. But I think the best thing for people to do is to visit your website and check it out for themselves. Thank you very much for being a guest on the show and sharing such valuable insights and advice. It has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Where can people reach you online?
The easiest way for people to reach me would be at powerupforprofits.com. That's my website, powerupforprofits.com, and there I've got links to all my social media.
If you enjoyed this episode, just subscribe to the podcast and future episodes will be downloaded automatically for you. Check out the show notes at educationhackers.com to get links to resources we talked about in this episode. See you next time.